What's going on, y'all? My name is Kway, man, and my thing is, I grew up in this country in the United States of America. My family comes from Ghana, West Africa, Liberia, West Africa, and I was born right here in the United States. Went to some of the best school systems out there, right? And all my life, I never heard anything about the Black and African successful, wealthiest individuals in our history. A lot of what I heard was about how much we overcame in slavery and other conditions that were not beneficial to us, but I didn't really know anything about how great of empires we built and how much wealth some of our individuals have succeeded in all across the diaspora, as well as in Africa and the motherland. We know all about European history. I can tell you all about the Jeff Bezoses, the Elon Musk, the Warren Buffetts, but how many of us out there actually know about our kings and queens? How many of us out there know about our businessmen and entrepreneurs spanning all the way back from the 17, 16, 1500s, right? And this is an issue that I think is not just something that speaks to me, but I think speaks to all of us, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna kick off this series with one of the wealthiest individuals, wealthiest African kings in history, not even the African kings. I'm talking the wealthiest man in the world to have ever lived. I'm talking about on top of Jeff Bezos. I'm talking about on top of Elon Musk. This man was worth more than anybody in the history of the world, and he was a Black African king right here in the Kingdom of Mali. So let's go ahead and kick it off. Now, Mansa Musa was a ruler of the Malian Empire, or the Kingdom of Mali, from 1317 to 1337 CE. Now, Mali is a country whose name, or kingdom, whose name means where the king resides. And Mansa is not a first name, but rather a title meaning king, ruler, or conqueror. Under Mansa Musa's rule, the Kingdom of Mali became the wealthiest kingdom and most powerful kingdom in all of Africa. And Mansa Musa himself became the richest person to have ever lived on planet Earth. Now, while much of current day Mali is a landlocked nation that suffers from, poverty and lack of resources like a lot of places in Africa today, the Kingdom of Mali was a whole different ballgame. It enjoyed wealth, power, prestige. People came from all over the world, Arabian nations, Europeans. People came to Mali to seek resources, trade, knowledge, information, and education. Now, the Malian Empire reached its territorial peak under Mansa Musa's rule. He built a massive army and was absolutely taking over everything nearby. Neighboring empires like the Ghanaian Empire, modern-day Senegal, modern-day Guinea, and even Mauritania. Now, while the Malian Empire had a massive army and was not to be played with, it also was known for its absolute massive wealth, which it gained primarily through gold mining, salt mining, and the slave and ivory trades. Now, Mansa Musa's early reign was really categorized by a lot of military conflicts. He was in continuous conflict with neighboring non-Muslim societies in particular. In 1324, while in Cairo, Mansa Musa had said that he had conquered about 24 cities and their surrounding districts. Now, some historians believe that during these conquests, he was capturing up to 6,000 people per year just in preparation for his journey to Mecca that he was preparing to do. And this guy was an absolute baller, right? So when he planned to take this journey into Mecca, he knew it was gonna be the biggest procession that the world had ever seen. And sure enough, he made that happen. On this journey to Mecca, Mansa Musa took so much gold with him and so many caravans of individuals, from slaves to the wealthy. It was so many people and so much gold that was going from Mali to Mecca that he actually crashed the price of gold for decades to come because there was so much of it. He was handing it out left and right to everybody and their mamas. All right, so Mansa Musa was a Muslim, right? And Muslims take a certain trip to Mecca, the holy city, every year, right? And that trip is called the Hajj. Now, Mansa Musa was preparing for this Hajj for, I think about 4 or 5 years, man. He literally was capturing other people's cities. He was capturing territories. He was, taking slaves every single year, up to 6,000 slaves a year. He was gathering just in preparation for his Hajj. My man knew that he was about to show up and show out. I know a lot of y'all know what I'm talking about, right? You get dressed, you gotta go to a dope party or something like that. You about to get suited and booted. This was his version of getting suited and booted. And my man came and he was not playing. This guy literally took so much gold and so many people with him. Up to 60,000 people traveled with Mansa Musa from Mali all the way to Mecca. Now, on this trip, this is a 2,700-mile trip that these guys were taking with 60,000 people on camel, on horse, and on foot. So this procession of 60,000 people, I mean, dressed in Persian silks, wearing gold chains, and doing their thing from each city that they stopped in, each city that they traveled in, they were carrying so much wealth with them that the cities that were just on the pathway to Mecca became absolutely wealthy in and of their own right. They said that Mansa Musa literally gave out so much gold, there was not a single person in that country that did not get some type of gold or some type of wealth just from him coming through their town. Right? I mean, just think about how big of a deal that is and how much wealth this guy had to be carrying with him. Now, when they reached Egypt, an Egyptian historian named Al-Omari quoted his friend by saying that Mansa Musa had spread so much wealth upon Cairo that the flood of his generosity, there was not one single person who did not receive a sum of gold from him. The people of Cairo received an incalculable amount of money from Mansa Musa, and so much so that the price of gold at the time was completely ruined. He ruined the value of money completely because he spread so much of it to so many people that literally it almost became damn near worthless because everybody in Mama had. That's massive inflation. I know a lot of y'all see what's going on right now with food prices and things of that nature because of the value of currencies, right? Just think about the fact that, you know, when the US government prints off all these, you know, fake dollar bills and things of that nature, we got so much money printing happening, everybody's got money, everybody got enough. Think of Mansa Musa as a very first PPP loan. Everybody's got money, everybody's buying, rims, everybody's buying cars, everybody's buying whatever it is that they want to buy. That was Mansa Musa coming through his town, one big ass PPP loan. Now, while this was great for, the overall African economy and the overall African nations and just wealth being spread so far and so vastly, this also had another type of effect that Mansa Musa and nobody else at the time would have foreseen. European forces from all the way across the sea heard about Mansa Musa's wealth and this event that he did by spreading so much wealth that a lot of them started to make up their own ideas and own concepts of what was happening in Mali. Matter of fact, if you think back to the story of El Dorado, the city of gold, it's been rumored or a story that this was actually based off of Mansa Musa and the city of Mali and the rumors that Europeans heard about, or not even rumors, but the fact that they heard about how much gold and wealth that Mansa Musa actually had. So much so that the Portuguese started sailing ships around, landing in West Africa, finding so much gold that they actually named the western coast of Africa, the Gold Coast. They also found things like ivory, which now was named Ivory Coast. And now that's how we have some of our countries today, like Ghana, which is now technically the Gold Coast, and Cote d'Ivoire, which is the Ivory Coast, right? These are modern day countries who were named from what Europeans came and saw in their nations and in those countries. Now, European cartographers, again, started to draw up all types of maps showing the different resources that were inside of Africa that they were hearing about, seeing themselves and things of that nature. So literally these guys were dreaming about Africa and the amount of resources that it had. And honestly, they still do it to this very day because let's be honest, Africa is the wealthiest nation or the wealthiest landmass when it comes to natural resources. So these guys started drawing maps, mapping out, they got gold over here on this side. They called that the Gold Coast, which is modern day Ghana. They saw ivory over on this side. They called that the Ivory Coast, which is now Cote d'Ivoire. They saw, animals and furs and sapphires and rubies and all these different resources that they mapped out on these cartographic maps. And even so much so that one of the maps actually showed Mansa Musa sitting on a throne of solid gold. Now, this was the beginning of the end of West Africa's flowering period. Because when Europeans set their sights on what Africa had in store based on what they heard about Mansa Musa, everything kind of spiraled downhill from there. These guys started showing up, and you guys know the rest, but we're not gonna get into that. One interesting fact about Mansa Musa and the rulers of the Malian Empire is that his predecessor, Abu Bakr II, which was his uncle, actually was a very big traveler. He was a very big expeditionist. So what Mansa Musa's uncle did, Abu Bakr II, is he built about 4,000 ships and took a massive amount of people with him on a large expedition west and never returned. Now, it's rumored that Abu Bakr actually landed in what is now Southern America, Central America area, and ended up settling over on the Americas. Now, there's no technical evidence of that, so they say. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at a lot of the Olmec heads and things of that nature, they do have a very strong resemblance to African people of today. So the idea and the concept is that Abu Bakr likely was successful in his travel and his journeys and just settled somewhere completely different, never returning back to Mali, leaving Mansa Musa to rule the Malian Empire. Now, Mansa Musa also developed a lot of properties and, very significant buildings in Mali at the time. These were wonders of the world. These are places that people still visit to this absolute day. One of them most notably known as the Sankore Madrasa. Now, the Sankore Madrasa was comprised of 3 mosques, one being the Sankore, one being Jingerber, and then the other one being the Sidi Yahya. Now, these comprise of what's called, the University of Timbuktu. And this was a place, and still is a place to this day, that people were actually going to get a very, very high level education. You had people coming from all over the world, like I said, Europe, Asia, Middle East, they all were coming to Timbuktu. Now, Timbuktu was already known as a center of trade and wealth. People came there for silk, they came there for gold, they came there for salts and all different types of things. Timbuktu was basically the New York City of Africa at the time, right? Of the world at the time. This is literally what places people came, traded ideas, traded cultures. There was just so much happening in Timbuktu. It was a massive, massive place, right? Now, Timbuktu was not just a place for merchants who came all over the world to trade, but it also was, again, an exchange of learning and ideas. Books from all over the world, from mosques all over the world, from European libraries and everything like that piled up into Timbuktu. And it literally became, like I said, a center for learning and amazing, amazing information. Now, the level of learning at Timbuktu Sankore University was superior to that of many other Islamic centers in the world. Scholars from Sankore would engage in learning or teaching while completing their Hajj. The trade in books within the Islamic world was one of the most important aspects of the university, where thousands upon thousands upon thousands of manuscripts were written and stored in the university. The Sankore Masjid was capable of housing 25,000 students and had one of the largest libraries in the world, housing between 400,000 and 700,000 manuscripts and books. Now, Mansa Musa passed away in 1337, leaving the Malian Empire to the rule of his sons. Now, over the years, the legend of Mansa Musa has become so ingrained in Western culture and the imaginations of the world that fabled stories and things of that nature have really developed around Mansa Musa. To this day, Mansa Musa still remains, again, the wealthiest individual to have ever lived, a wealth that surpasses anything that the world has ever seen to this day. And the Malian Empire was one that stood the test of time and accomplished all types of great feats. Now, Mansa Musa and the Malian Empire is only one of many, many, many stories and many, many, many empires and kingdoms in the African world, in the African sphere, and one of the many great individuals across the diaspora. Y'all stay tuned, man, because this series is just kicking off. We have a lot of other stories for you guys and a lot of other individuals that are going to blow your minds away. I promise you, spanning from Jamaican cultures to Haitians to Black American individuals who just, like I said, reached those heights of Black excellence that we all know and love. Now, again, you guys always remember that wealth is your birthright, and I'll see you guys on the next one.